All right, next we're going to get into outside services. And so I'm going to invite Abdullah up here and Ali up here. Charlie was also going to be up here, so I'm going to sit in for Charlie. He has a British accent, but I'm not going to use a British accent. That could be really awkward. So we're going to talk about the changes that went into place this year. Abdullah's going to give a presentation, and then we're going to have Q&A. We know that this change is affecting many of you, and so we wanted to just put it at the beginning of the program. Let's talk about it. Let's ask our questions. Let's get to it. So with that being said, here's Abdullah. He is Placement's OSS and Heavy Equipment Liaison. This is Ali. She is the Associate General Counsel for Burning Man. Take it away, Abdullah.
Is somebody running this for me? Wow. Which button am I pushing? The right one. So, hi, I'm Abdullah. I'm with Outside Services and with the placement team. I've pretty much been the only consistent person doing outside services since we first decided we need to do it in 2009. I'm not going to go into very much detail about OSS and what it does at this point. I'm going to assume that you all know or your camp leads know. What I want to talk about today is the service provider cap. There was an email that came out a while back, and I believe it was also mentioned in the JRS, that we are not allowing any new service providers and we're not allowing any increase in business in 2018. Pardon. Solid, thank you. So the basics are the total volume by issued credentials limited to the same thing that each service provider had last year. No new service providers, and we're not going to allow any expansion or diversification this year. Take home with that is it's 2017 all over again. Why? OSS has already been getting kind of a, say, 80-20 between people who are very congratulatory and think that this is a good move, and then some theme camps in particular are concerned about what this is going to do for their logistics. Basically, the program is being used by some camps not to assist in infrastructure, but to do infrastructure. And OSS was never meant to do this. OSS was intended to be a controlling and metering resource. And so we're going to institute this cap in order to get our culture back, to try not to have an increase and a growth in what are basically like people doing business on the playa. We have you're beautiful. So why the cap? We have a growth in service provider volume, growth in service provider services. One thing that people have probably talked about and everybody saw and was kind of scratching their heads and going Whiskey Tango Foxtrot was the segways on the playa. And then last, there's kind of a need for Burning Man infrastructure to keep up with the service providers. As I said before, conceptually, OSS was intended to help citizens participate. Citizens, theme camps primarily, also staff, was not intended to foster luxury or convenience. Practically and unchecked, service provider volume outstrips our ability to management every year. I'm not going to quote numbers, but in the 10 years that I've been herding these cats, they've had a shit ton of kittens. The sort of the anecdotal reference that I wanted to make on this particular topic is that service provider supplied RVs and trailers on the playa are responsible for more leaks onto the playa than all of the rest of the event put together. That includes theme camps, that includes participants, weekend warriors, staff camps, art, everything put together. Since the inception, we've had to deal with an alarming amount of business. Service provider offerings require monitoring and management, which means every year there's more and more and more. There's dealing with getting these people into the city. There's dealing with credentialing, which involves the box office, which involves OSS. There's wrangling them at point one, which involves gate. it just basically, it winds up being more and more time for more and more departments every year. Sorry, wrong slide here. Okay. Anyway, one of the things that we're dealing with is complexity. Service providers are not participants. They're here for the money. They respect our values and our culture, our collective municipality, only insofar as not doing so means that they can get caught. And this is the thing that I and pretty much everyone on Playa can be responsible for and engaged in, is looking out and seeing what people are doing. If you see advertising, that kind of thing. If you see, money exchanging hands on Playa, this is the thing that we want to know about, both for OSS and also, I forget the name of the department who's doing compliance. Compliance. Nice one. Once service providers are inside the trash fence, they're there, they've paid their fees, and they want to make money. And one of the ways that they do that is they diversify. And it can be that you started out supplying trailers. In 2008 or 2009, I found a stack of trailers that were being rented out by a local. And they were unlocked, and I went inside, and they were kind of playing, and he was just bringing them out for people. The next year, I went into an unlocked trailer, and the reefer was stocked with steaks. There were about 3 cases of Coors Light, and there were bicycles in there. The impulse is to go nuts and make as much money as you can, and you will diversify. You're already in there. What else can you do and to charge people for? The take home from this is we make a rule in OSS, and they find ways around it, or just hope that we won't find out that they are offering more services, some of which are actually paid for on Playa, and trying to increase the amount of money that is coming in. Infrastructure, for more than 5 years, I was the only on Playa presence managing service providers. I was running around doing that at the same time that I was keeping my job on placement, and I also did some time on gate. Today, there is a paid staff of 20, seasonal. We have increased sophistication at Point 1. They were calling it China Beach or Westport for a while, which is people who are managing ingress and egress of service providers. There is Damnation Alley, which is the camping area inside the city grid where we have service providers who are going to remain inside the fence at the event. We have them reside there so that we can find them and so that you can find them. And then there's McKinley Park, which is kind of the eyesore outside of the city grid that I don't know if you've seen it, but it basically is where all of their rolling stock and all of their materials are stored. We have had to rush to keep up with the volume that these people are doing. Take home from this is it's an arms race. So, getting into the details, again, as mentioned earlier, the volume per service provider is not going to change. They can do as much or they can do less. They are not going to be allowed to increase the number of credentials that any one of them is given. So I was getting cute here. Sparkle Toes Custom Furry Boots was contracted for 10 delivery vehicles and 12 personnel. That's going to be their limit. We're not going to play around. There's not going to be any cap and trade. They're not going to be allowed to give their credentials to another service provider. They're not going to be able to play around with the math. What they did last year is the max that they're going to be allowed to do this. We're doing this for the community, and I know that this is alarming to some people, and what we would like you to do is come talk to us. OSS at Burning Man, help at Burning Man. My email alias is probably going to be floating around. We have people who are more than happy to answer questions about this. But we are not doing this because we're martinets. We're not doing this because we're fascists. We're doing this because we're trying to help Burning Man. There are not going to be any new service providers. As previous, no known quantities only, no noobs, all established relationships so that we don't have to deal with trying to get people, acclimated any more than we do from the people who are coming back. Same total materials, vehicles, and personnel as last year. And then finally, no new service. we're not going to allow you, if you have spent the past 5 years bringing in trailers, you can't do, you can't do dance lessons, you can't do crazy stuff like that. You're going to be limited to what you did before. No diversification of business by a service provider in 2018. This is something didn't know if we were going to talk about. There are a couple of exceptions. In a very small number of cases, we were aware of changes, theme camps that were going to have particular issues, and we're trying to accommodate them. I'm not going to give examples or names. Again, this is being done to assist the camps and is in no way intended to support or encourage the businesses that are doing this. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to let people mess around. I've been told verbally that I can name this. Gentech of Nevada we got contacted by 4 different customers stating that their prices from last year had gone up between 350 and 400%. I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefores. There's not going to be any finger pointing, but that's not going to work with us. So Gentech will not be on Playa this year. If you have questions about this, we are actually going to try and work with people to try and get something. I saw a hand go back up there. I'm going to do a Q&A in a minute. They also can't, screw around and say, okay, every last of my janky shit heap trailers is now a luxury unit, and so I'm going to charge you twice what it was. We're looking at their price at their price lists. Like a certain amount for inflation, for cost of living, and so on, that's acceptable. If you think that somebody is getting out of hand with this kind of stuff, please let us know. Also, the OSS website has a listing of service providers that were successful in being service providers the previous year. Burning Man is not going to get into the Yelp business. We are not going to recommend people. So we're just basically saying these people did stuff well enough that we didn't throw them out last year, and you guys take it from there. However, Spark is back, and that is an option for theme camps to like communally resource. In case Spark is a no commerce zone, advertising is not going to be tolerated. Gifting and sharing of resources are encouraged, and we want you to take your financial and transaction details sort of off of Spark. Again, this is we want this to be between the theme camps, not between the theme camps and Burning Man. And finally, yeah, okay, so questions and how is this going to work? Does somebody else got a microphone or? Hello?
We have one right here.
Yep, good.
Hi there. Hi. So our bus can't make it over the mountain again, and we were in the midst of swapping out with a trailer, but the vendor we're working with says, we're not going to tell you for sure until we hear official word from OSS that we're good, we're blessed to go this year, and they said they haven't gotten that word yet. So wanting to know about the timing.
Did you send an email to OSS about this last week?
No.
Okay, because the situation sounds familiar. So I'm going to sound like I'm at the White House, and I'm very, very apologetic for this. So basically, if you haven't reached out to us at the OSS alias about it, please do so. And here it comes. We will look into it. You have my word that we will look into it, and we will respond to you about this. There might be alternatives. There might be workarounds. We'll see what we can try and do. Again, this is in no way intended to be a burden on theme camps. Oh, I got 1 minute left.
So we'll take 2
Question.
minutes, but let's do questions.
Question on your left.
Hi. You said that there will be no new permits, and I understand the sentiment on that. But not only that is true, you guys also eliminated a bunch of former providers, which means there's less permits. So it's not just no growth, it's shrinkage. And a lot of camps who have a whole lot of resources and default world money will be able to win that race. And it will hurt other camps who can't compete with that. So yeah, on the surface you say we're checking price gouging, but there's going to be a lot of things happening in the background, and a lot of camps will suffer for it. So I'm wondering, if you kicked a bunch of OSS providers out, and I got some emails from them saying, hey, can you give me early access passes so I can deliver this? I even got a promise for a free RV from one of them. If I give him passes, I don't know how many of you got these emails, but it's creating a lot of black market out there, and I can see it being a huge problem this year. So if you eliminated all these providers, how come we're not increasing the ones that were doing good business?
Copy that. So far, to my knowledge, we have eliminated 2 service providers, and we're going to work around that, and we're going to recommend that people contact, like for example, in the case of Gentech, other generator service providers. We're going to allow some kind of flexibility. There's actually going to be some references. There may have been an email that already went out that included a list of other generator service providers who are allowed. We're going to rely, and this is going to sound so brown nosy. We're going to rely on camps to be creative and resourceful and figure this kind of stuff out. I understand that in some cases that's not necessarily going to solve your problem. We're going to do what we can.
Testing. Great. Let's take another question.
Yeah. I'm out. I'm free. Oh, one more.
We have a question here.
Hi. Mazel tov for doing what you've done this year. I couldn't be happier to see a cap. Thank you. Hinging on what this gentleman said, as far as getting emails for WAPs and whatnot, a lot of us theme camp producers are going, oh, hell no. What is this? So I would encourage everybody in the room to reach out to OSS when you're seeing these things happen, because it's how we hold each other accountable and these vendors and help them. And like case in point with one of our vendors, I'm like, that's a 14% increase. As theme camp producers, we have to look at that and report you, you know? So here's what you need to say. Oh, if it is because your BLM fees have increased, you need to be transparent in talking to your theme camps that you're working with so they know what those fees are. Show them. Otherwise, you're going to be asked out, and thus camps are asked out. So don't get greedy, because they're really watching. The other thing that specifically wanted to ask is, so what you just showed on Spark, that is the list of who's been invited back per se. That's an actual list versus there's nobody on that list that hasn't been invited back?
So the list on the website is all of the service providers from the previous year who, at the end of the year, they got their deposits back and they weren't kicked out for misbehavior, compliance issues, anything like that. We don't recommend them, we don't approve them, we just tell you a minimum acceptable standard of behavior has been met. Whether or not they plan on coming back next year, that's kind of up to the theme camps.
And one thing to say too, Spark is a separate thing. He's talking about the OSS area of the Burning Man website, and Spark is a collaboration tool for people and for resources. You can say, I need a DJ, I'm a DJ, or I have a trailer, I need a trailer, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Spark is going to be about you guys. It's not going to be about us. If Spark happens, it's going to be because theme camps make it happen.
Well, all right, I think that's all we have for time for questions because it's 10:12, unless your question is really, really fast. No, it's not. All right, so if you have more questions about OSS, you're going to talk to Mr. Abdullah. He's going to be here all day. Talk to him.
All day.
All day, every day. So now I want to know whether you, let's give them a round of applause. Fabulous.